Hey guys, it's Steve Lamothe, the founder at Elevate Realty Group, and this week we are breaking down what I am seeing as a very controversial topic. Donald Trump floated the idea of a 50-year mortgage, and this is not a political video, it's an apolitical video. I just wanted to share my thoughts and just kind of weigh into the topic. And as you know, I am a huge advocate for home ownership. And, my guiding principle for owning homes is if you look at all of the data across the board, home ownership is the entry into the middle class and upper middle class, right? So anybody who doesn't own a home is left out of the middle class. Now, it's pretty rare someone doesn't own a home and saves enough money and invests that money to make their way into the middle class or upper middle class, but it does happen. But I would say the vast majority of people who do not own a home never make their way into the middle class. So that is my guiding principle of that I base all of my advice and my decisions on top of. So let's break down the 50-year mortgage. What's up with it? Is it good or bad? Now, the people who think this is a negative proposal or is going to do harm to home buyers and only make the banks rich, their philosophy is if you take out a 50-year mortgage, you are paying almost double the amount of interest that you would with a 30-year mortgage. And that is true, right? If you did the math on a typical home in Sacramento or Folsom, let's say a $650,000 home. If you had a 50-year mortgage, you bought that home and you stayed in that home and paid off that mortgage in 50 years, you're going to pay a lot more interest over the life of that loan. That is true. Well, that was also the case back in the day when, real estate mortgages were 15-year mortgages and they extended it and created a 30-year mortgage. So the same argument could have applied way back then when people were historically getting 15-year mortgages, and all of a sudden now this option is available where you can stretch that out to a 30-year term, and it made payments significantly lower, right? We don't say that about a 30-year mortgage today, right? We don't say, oh, those are making banks wealthy and all of that. So I guess my point is, outside of the fact that you're going to pay a lot more in interest if you take that mortgage to term, in my career, 15 years of selling real estate, 3,000 sales, I've probably met maybe 20 people who have bought their home 30 years ago and paid off that mortgage on the home that they purchased, right? Out of thousands of people. I have met thousands of people who have bought homes with 30-year mortgages that have either paid off a mortgage on their third or fourth home by the time they've bought their third or fourth home with a 30-year mortgage. And if they haven't paid off their mortgage, they've earned hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, of increased equity from the homes that they purchased and sold and traded up and traded down on 30-year mortgages. So I would say in practical terms, the buyer that buys a home and pays off their mortgage on a single home is extremely rare, like less than 1%. But the buyers who get into the market to own a home and then also see the appreciation and the equity gain and the forced savings of paying their mortgage down significantly outweighs the people who are worried about paying double in interest. Because let's face it, the average owner lives in their home for less than 7 years, and that's declining, right? It's been between 5 and 7 years for a long time. So if you buy a home with a 50-year mortgage, let's say it's $500,000, and 5 years later, you sell that home and you've made $150,000 in equity, you're not paying all that interest, but it allowed you to get into the home to build up equity. My point is, and we'll wrap this up, home ownership is very important. If a policy like this creates 5%, 10% more homeowners, that's going to create exceptional wealth for those homeowners, right? I'm an advocate for helping people buy homes smartly. You have to do it within budget. As always, if you're interested in buying or selling, please reach out to us at homesbyelevate.com.